Next part is going to be the red plastic base, which attaches underneath the wooden base. Taking the screws out so I can take it apart right now. But we'll start by making a part for the plastic base, which is going to have the same outside dimensions as the wood piece did. So in a new part, I'll create a new sketch on the XZ plane. And again, I'll draw a rectangle that's going to have dimensions as before. I'm going to not start on the origin though. My length is 4.305 and my width is 1.565. The reason I didn't start in the origin is because I want to constrain the center of this line to the origin. So I'll use the coincident constraint on the center of the line, which will be a green dot, and then go to the origin and constrain it there. That way I now have what will be an origin plane that will be in the center of my object here. Finish this sketch and I'll extrude this sketch 0.31 inches, which is the thickness of that part of the red base. And then on the front end of it has a round over, which I'm just going to use a fillet for. And it'll be the fillet. The front edge the same thickness as the shape, which will be a 0.31 fillet. Then looking at the red base, we see that it's actually hollowed out on the inside here. It's just a thickness of 1/10 of an inch to the material, and that's hollowed out here. So I'm going to use the shell tool in order to do that. I'm going to go to the underside of it, and using the shell tool, which has a default thickness of 0.1 inch, I want to click on the surfaces I want to remove, which would be this bottom surface here, and press OK. And that now has cut out the excess material from the inside of it. Now the next step is going to be to put these posts and holes on it, which line up with the wooden block. I could measure these and put those in, but in order to make sure they're exactly where they're supposed to be, I'm actually going to create an assembly with the two pieces at this point, and then use the holes that I already put in the wood block as my reference points for the posts and holes in the red piece. So I'll save this. Call it red plastic base. And then I'll create a new, I'll close this, and then I'll create a new assembly file. In that assembly file, I will place my wood base. And then I will place my plastic base, at least how far I have it so far. And then I want to constrain that to the wood base. I'll do that with 3 constraints. I will constrain the bottom edge to the surface here, the mate. And then I will constrain the back to the back with a flush, and the side to the side with a flush. Now I have that constrained on here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get into editing this part, this plastic base I was working on, by double-clicking on it. And now I'm going to project the geometry of these holes onto a new sketch on the bottom of my base. So I'll go to Create a 2D Sketch and click on here. And then I'll click on Project Geometry. And I want to find those holes which are on the other piece. You can find them by just hovering over it, and then we'll find the holes. I could also just change my orientation to go around to the bottom and see them there. And I can click on it down there. Either way works. And now once I have those holes projected, I can finish this sketch. And I'm now going to go back into modeling in my regular part so I can model the parts from there. So I'll save this assembly so far. So I have to return out of the part here. And then I'll save the assembly that I'm working in. Assembled car. Click yes to all because I'll want to make sure I save the changes I made. And I'll close this and I'll open back up my plastic base. I can see that sketches there with those holes. Now I can use those holes to, or those locations to help me create where I want the rest of, where I want the next features to be. Those holes are actually a little bit larger than I want the posts to be. The posts that I'm going to create, the posts that I want to create are actually going to be 0.35 in diameter. So I'm going to go into this sketch and I'm going to create new circles that are 0.35. As I zoom in, you can see they're slightly smaller than those projected holes. And then the holes of the shapes for the screw holes are larger. They're 0.436. So I'll create two circles for those. I want to extrude those holes, those posts, to go all the way through, which would be the height of the wooden base, which is going to be the thickness here of 0.31 plus the wooden base, which was 0.72. So I'll do an extrusion. And I'll choose these inside holes. I want them to go the other direction. And I want them to be added extrusions. So the distance would be 0.31 plus 0.72. Now those holes, so those posts are created. Then I'm going to go and make that sketch I made visible again. So I'm going to use these other ones as well. These go simply to the height of the plastic base. It looks like it doesn't want to extrude while, doesn't want to make a shared sketch while it's an adaptive part. So I'll point out over here in the browser, you can see the double arrow circle there. That means that the reference geometry for this part is adapting to another sketch. I can suppress that for a minute. I'll turn off the adaptive features. And now I can use this sketch again for another extrusion. I want to extrude these surfaces. I'll do the inside parts as well. I want to go the other direction. And this time I just want to go to 0.31, which is the height of this. And now I'm done with this sketch here, so I'll turn the visibility off again. Just so that I don't make anything not work, I'm going to turn on the adaptive feature of that again. Now the next step would be to add some of the holes. The holes go all the way, go in the post here down to the level of the platform here. There's also holes in these for where the screws go. To make the holes, I'm going to use the same kind of technique where I'm going to make center points. That's just going to make it a little quicker to make the holes. So I'll create a sketch up here, and I'm going to project the geometry for these three other circles, and then I'm going to add points at the centers of each of those circles. And then when I go to the hole tool, it'll find those points for me. Now I want to set the parameters for the hole. The holes have a diameter of 0.185, make them a flat bottom hole. And then the depth is going to be the 0.72 plus 0.31. That will go all the way through, but I want to back off the thickness of the shell here. So I'm going to subtract 0.1, and that will get me just as deep as where this is here. So I'll place those holes. Then I want holes for these two as well. However, these holes I'm going to place from this side. So on this, I'm going to make this sketch visible again. And I'm going to create a new sketch and then place points where those two holes should go. I want to constrain those points to the centers of those other circles. So I'll simply use the constraint, the coincident constraint. Actually, first I need to project the geometry of those points. I think if I project the geometry of those points, I don't actually need those other points. So I'm going to delete those other points. I'm going to hide that sketch before because I don't need that sketch, but I only have those 2 points where those holes go. So I go to the hole tool, and this type of hole, I want it to be a counterbore hole. I want the holes to have thickness on top of 0.32 or diameter on top of 0.32. I want them to go 1/4 of an inch deep, and then I want them to go all the way through for the rest, but I want that hole to be 0.158 all the way through. And now I can see that those holes are recessed in those little cylinders, and that's what the screws are going to go through to screw into the wood base. There's one more hole on the part, which is a hole sort of towards the front here. I'm just going to place that as a regular hole, place it on this surface. I want it to go halfway across, so I'll do a reference from the edge. The reference is going to be 1.565 divided by 2. So I know it'll be halfway across. It's going to be a countersunk hole because the hole kind of has a little bevel edge to it. The hole has a outside diameter of 0.36, and we'll leave it at the default 82 degrees, and has an inside diameter of 0.2. And then the other reference will be from the very front of the shape, and it will be 0.350 from the front of the shape, which it kind of cuts into the curve a little bit. So then I have that hole, and that is all of the holes I need for this base. To finish this piece, there's one more feature I need to model on this piece, and that's where the cutouts for the axles that go across them. So in order to do that, I'm going to create a sketch on the side of the piece. And those axle holes, they're little U shapes, and they are 0.13 in diameter. So I'm going to use the line tool, and I'm going to use the built-in tangent arc feature of the line tool. So I'll click here and go up. It's going to go up half of 0.13. So I'll do 0.13 divided by 2. And then if I click and drag from where I stopped, I can hold the mouse button down, I can get into a tangent arc tool. I'll make a half circle, and then I'll finish this line off. I want to add a dimension because this half circle should be 0.13 divided by 2 for radius as well. I need 2 of those, one towards the front, one towards the back, so I'll make one towards the back as well. Goal was up 0.13 divided by 2. And then arc, again, dimension here, 0.13 divided by 2. And then to place these, from measuring, I know that the front one is 1.065 from this line to the front corner. And the back one for measuring, I know, to be 0.742. Those are fully constrained, so I can finish that. And then I will extrude that, and I will extrude cut those, and those will go all the way through. So the distance will be to all the way through both sides. That's the cutout where the axles will rest. Last thing to make my part done here is I'm going to change the material to a color that looks similar to what I had previously. Oh. So I'll make it a red material. So to the color here. Change it to red. And that seems to match well with the original. So I'll save this piece. And since I already had made an assembly, I'll close this, I already had made an assembly where I put these two pieces together. I can open that assembly. I'll update that because it's the difference that I updated it. And now I can see that all of those features are displayed with my plastic base attached to my wooden block. So right now I'm ready to move on to the next piece.